Alright, alright, alright. Oh, a rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright, alright. Jeremy, happy river. Alright, alright, alright. Can you feel the spark that sets the fire of eternity, civil liberty? Can you feel a rather large excitement that's just occurred? Jeremy, that beautiful Otter here, equality and civil liberty. Jeremy, that beautiful Otter here. I'm glad to see I'm all in agreement with all myself. Jeremy, that beautiful Otter here. I couldn't get along with myself more if I do agree with myself. Jeremy, that beautiful Otter here. Equality and civil liberty. The coal in the heart is the spark to the soul. Ever burning in all. Equality, civil liberty, the right to stand on our own, even to divide one another. Equality, civil disobedience, reliability to equality, to speak on your own for one and all. Equality and civil liberty go hand in hand for civil deeds so deep down. Human rights to make a stand. Can you explain what we've done wrong without threatening? How can we make right when you can't explain? Civil rights and equality, communication only happens through equality. When you threaten and calm down before you explain, you break every law of the land of equality. Alright, alright, alright. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Tell me that beautiful Otter here. And today we're going to discuss Title 47, Telecommunications of the Code of Federal Regulations, Volume 1, Chapter 1, 0 through 19. 0 through 1 to 0 through 701 discusses commission organization. That was commission organization. And 1.1 to 1.30004 discusses practice and procedure. And 2.1 to 2.1400 discusses frequency, allocations, and radio treaty matters, general rules, and regulations. Now then, 3.1 to 3.76 discusses authorization and administration of accounting authorities in maritime and maritime mobile satellite radio services. Now then, 4.1 to 4.13 discusses disruptions to communications. Now then, 5.1 to 5.602 discusses experimental radio service. Now then, 6.1 to 6.23 discusses access to telecommunications service, telecommunications equipment, and customer premises equipment by persons with disabilities. Now then, 7.1 to 7.23 discusses access to voicemail and interactive menu services and equipment by people with disabilities. Now then, 8.1 to 8.17 discusses persevering the open internet. Now then, 9.1 to 9.7 discusses interconnected voice over internet protocol services. Now then, 10.1 to 10.540 discusses wireless emergency alerts. Now then, 11.1 to 11.61 discusses Emergency Alert System EAS. Now then, 12.1 to 12.4 discusses resiliency, redundancy, and reliability of communications. Now then, 13.1 to 13.217 discusses commercial radio operators. Now then, 14.1 to 14.61 discusses access to advanced communications services and equipment by people with disabilities. Now then, 15.1 to 15.71 discusses radio frequency devices. Now then, 17.1 to 17.58 discusses construction, marking, and lighting of antenna structures. Now then, 18.101 to 18.311 discusses industrial, scientific, and medical equipment. Now then, 19.735/101 to 19.735/203 discusses employee responsibilities and conduct. Dun 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 dun. Jeremy, the happy river otter is signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy, the happy river otter here. Alright, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, a rather large excitement has just occurred. Today we're going to discuss Title 47, Telecommunications of the Code of Federal Regulations, Volume 2 of Chapter 1, 20 through 39. Now then, 20.1 to 20.22 discusses commercial mobile services. Now then, 22.1 to 22.1037 discusses public mobile services. Now then, 24.1 to 24.84/24.844 discusses personal communications services. Now then, 25.101 to 25.701 discusses satellite communications. Now then, 27.1 to 27.1255 discusses miscellaneous wireless communications services. Now then, 32.1 to 32.9000 discusses uniform system of accounts for telecommunications companies. Now then, 36.1 to 36.507 discusses jurisdictional separations, procedures, standards, procedures for separating telecommunications, property tax costs, revenues, expenses, taxes, and reserves for telecommunications companies. Now then, 37 through 39 are reserved. Dun 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 dun! Jeremy the Happy River Otter here signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright, oh boy, oh boy. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Today we are going to discuss the Title 47 Telecommunications Code of Federal Regulations, Volume 3, Chapter 1, 40 through 69. Now then, 40 through 41 are reserved. 42.01 to 42.11 are preservation of records of communication common carriers. Now then, 43.01 to 43.82 is based on reports of communications common carriers and certain affiliates. Now then, 51.1 to 51.919 is interconnection. Now then, 52.1 to 52.111 is based on numbering. Now then, 53.1 to 53.501 is based on special provisions concerning Bell operating companies. Now then, 54.1 to 54.1310 is based on universal service. Now then, 59.1 to 59.4 is based on infrastructure sharing. Now then, 61.1 to 61.193 is based on tariffs. Now then, 63.01 to 63.702 is based on extension of lines, new lines, and discontinuance, reduction, outage, and impairment of service by common carriers, and grants of recognized private operating agency status. Now then, 64.1 to 64.6060 is based on miscellaneous rules relating to common carriers. Now then, 65.1 to 65.830 is based on interstate rate of return, prescription procedures, and methodologies. Now then, 68.1 to 68.614 is based on connection of terminal equipment to the telephone network. Now then, 69.1 to 69.731 is based on access charges. Dun 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 dun. Jeremy the Happy River Otter is signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Today we're going to discuss Title 47 of the Telecommunications Code of Federal Regulations, Volume 4, Chapter 1, 70 through 79. 70 through 72 are reserved. Now then, 73.1 to 73.8000 governs radio broadcast services. Now then, 74.1 to 74.1290 governs experimental radio, auxiliary, special broadcast, and other program distributional services. Now then, 76.1 to 76.2000 governs multi-channel video and cable television service. Now then, 78.1 to 78.115 governs cable television relay service. Now then, 79.1 to 79.110 governs accessibility of video programming. Dun 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 dun! Jeremy the Happy River Otter signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright, Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. And today we're going to report on the Title 47 of Telecommunications Code of Federal Regulations, Volume 4, Chapter 1, 80 through 199. Now then, 80.1 to 80.1252 covers stations in the maritime services. Now then, 87.1 to 87.529 covers aviation services. Now then, 90.1 to 90.1337 covers private land and mobile radio services. Now then, 94 is reserved. Now then, 95.1 to 95.1511 covers personal radio services. Now then, 97.1 to 97.527 covers amateur radio service. Now then, 101.1 to 101.1527 covers fixed microwave services. Now then, 102 through 199 are reserved. And so concludes another exciting episode of Jeremy the Happy River Otter Report. Dun 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 dun. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright, oh boy, a rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. And today we're going to report on Title 47 of Telecommunications of the Code of Federal Regulations, Chapter 2, 200 through 299. Now then, 200 is reserved, and 201 to 201.3 is about executive policy. Now then, 202 to 202.3 covers national security and emergency preparedness planning and execution. Now then, 211 to 211.7 covers emergency restoration priority procedures for telecommunications services. Now then, 212 to 212.4 covers procedures for obtaining international telecommunication service for use during a wartime emergency. Now then, 213 to 213.8 covers Government and Public Correspondence Telecommunications Precedence System. Now then, 214 to 214.6 covers procedures for the use and coordination of the radio spectrum during a wartime emergency. Now then, 215 to 215.2 covers federal government focal point for electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, information. Now then, 216.1 to 216.2 covers National Communications System Issuance System. Now then, 217 through 299 are reserved. So in conclusion, dun 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 dun, a rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy, the Happy River Otter, signing off. Alright. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, a rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy, the Happy River Otter here. And today we're going to report on Title 47, Telecommunications of the Code of Federal Regulations, Chapter 3 and 4. Chapter 3 covers National Telecommunications and Information Administration of the Department of Commerce. The chapters are 300 through 399 for Chapter 3. Now then, 300.1 covers Manual of Regulations and Procedures for Federal Radio Frequency Management. Now then, 301.1 to 301.220 covers relocation and spectrum sharing by federal government stations. Now then, 302 to 399 are reserved. Now then, for Chapter 4, National Telecommunications and Information Administration, Department of Commerce, and National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Department of Transportation. Now then, 400 to 400.10 covers E/911 Grant Program. Now then, 401 to 499 are reserved. So then, dun 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 dun, Jeremy, the Happy River Otter here, signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright, oh boy, oh boy, a rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy, the Happy River Otter here. And today we're going to discuss trademark law, an overview. Trademarks are generally distinctive symbols, pictures, or words that sellers affix to distinguish and identify the origin of their products. Trademark status may also be granted to distinctive and unique packaging, color combinations, building designs, product styles, and overall presentations. It is also possible to receive trademark status for identification that is not on its face distinct or unique, but which has developed a secondary meaning over time that identifies it with the product or seller. The owner of a trademark has exclusive right to use it on the product it was intended to identify, and often on related products. Service marks receive the same legal protection as trademarks, but are meant to distinguish services rather than products. In the United States, trademarks may be protected by both federal state statute and under the Lanham Act, 15 U.S.C. 1051 through 1127, and states statutory and/or common laws. Congress enacted the Lanham Act under its constitutional grant of authority to regulate interstate and foreign commerce. See U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. A trademark registered under the Lanham Act has nationwide protection. See 111 or 1115 of the Act. Under the Lanham Act, a seller applies to register a trademark with the Patent and Trademark Office. The mark can already be in use or be one that will be used in the future. See 1051 of the Act. The Office's regulations pertaining to trademarks are found in Parts 1 through 7 of Title 37 of the Code of Federal Regulations. If the trademark is initially approved by an examiner, it is published in the Official Gazette of the Trademark Office to notify other parties of the pending approval so that it may be opposed. See 1062 through 1063 of the Act. An appeals process is available for rejected applications. See 1070 through 1071 of the Act. Under state common law, trademarks are protected as part of the law of unfair competition. Registration is not required. See unfair competition. State statutory provisions on trademarks differ, but most have adopted a version of the Model Trademark Bill, or MTB, or the Uniform Deceptive Trade Practices Act, UDTPA. The MTB provides for registration of trademarks, while the UDTPA does not. Further protection of trademarks is provided by the Tariff Act of 1930. See 19 U.S.C. 1526. Dun 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 dun! Jeremy the Happy with the Otter is signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy the Happy with the Otter here. And today we're going to discuss Title 47, Telecommunications of the Code of Federal Regulations, Volume 1, Chapter 1, 0 through 19, 0 through 1 to 0 through 701, discusses Commission Organization. That was Commission Organization. And 1.1 to 1.30004 discusses Practice and Procedure. And 2.1 to 2.1400 discusses Frequency, Allocations, and Radio Treaty Matters, General Rules and Regulations. Now then, 3.1 to 3.76 discusses Authorization and Administration of Accounting Authorities in Maritime and Maritime Mobile Satellite Radio Services. Now then, 4.1 to 4.13 discusses Disruptions to Communications. Now then, 5.1 to 5.602 discusses Experimental Radio Service. Now then, 6.1 to 6.23 discusses Access to Telecommunications Service, Telecommunications Equipment, and Customer Premises Equipment by Persons with Disabilities. Now then, 7.1 to 7.23 discusses Access to Voicemail and Interactive Menu Services and Equipment by People with Disabilities. Now then, 8.1 to 8.17 discusses Persevering the Open Internet. Now then, 9.1 to 9.7 discusses interconnected voice over Internet protocol services. Now then, 10.1 to 10.540 discusses wireless emergency alerts. Now then, 11.1 to 11.61 discusses Emergency Alert System EAS. Now then, 12.1 to 12.4 discusses resiliency, redundancy, and reliability of communications. Now then, 13.1 to 13.217 discusses commercial radio operators. Now then, 14.1 to 14.61 discusses access to advanced communications services and equipment by people with disabilities. Now then, 15.1 to 15.71 discusses radio frequency devices. Now then, 17.1 to 17.58 discusses construction, marking, and lighting of antenna structures. Now then, 18.101 to 18.311 discusses industrial, scientific, and medical equipment. Now then, 19.735/101 to 19.735/203 discusses employee responsibilities and conduct. Dun 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 dun. Jeremy the Happy River Otter is signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, Jeremy the Happy River Otter. And today we're going to discuss the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 35, U.S. Patent and Trademark Office Regulations. Part 1. Chapter 1 discusses establishment of officers and employees, functions 1 through 14. Now then, Chapter 2 discusses proceedings in the Patent and Trademark Office 21 through 27. Now then, Chapter 3 discusses practice before Patent and Trademark Office 31 through 33. Now then, Chapter 4 discusses patent fees, funding, search systems 41 through 42. Dun 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 dun. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here, signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. And today we're going to discuss Part 2 of 35 U.S. Code, Patentability of Inventions and Grants of Patents. Starts off Chapter 10, Patentability of Inventions, 100 through 105. Chapter 11, Application for Patents, 111 to 123. Chapter 12, Examination of Application, 131 to 135. Chapter 13, Review of Patent and Trademark Office Decisions, 141 through 146. Chapter 14, Issue of Patent, 151 to 157. Chapter 15, Plant Patents, 161 to 164. Chapter 16, Designs, 171 to 173. Chapter 17, Secrecy of Certain Inventions and Filing Applications in Foreign Countries, 181 to 188. Now then, Chapter 18, Patent Rights and Inventions Made with Federal Assistance, 200 to 212. Dun 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 dun! Jeremy the Happy River Otter here. Signing off. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright, oh boy, a rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy the River Otter here. And today we're going to discuss Title 35 of the Federal Code of Regulations, Patents and Protection of Patent Rights. And that's Code Part 3 of Title 35, starting off with Chapter 25, which discusses amendment and correction of patents, 251 through 257. Now then, Chapter 26 discusses ownership and assignment, 261 through 262. Now then, Chapter 27 discusses government interests in patents, 266 through 267. Now then, Chapter 28 discusses infringement of patents, 271 through 273. Now then, Chapter 29 discusses remedies for infringement of patent and other actions, 281 to 299. Now then, Chapter 30 discusses prior art citations to office and ex parte re-examination of patents, 301 to 307. Now then, Chapter 31 discusses inter partes review, 311 to 319. Now then, Chapter 32 discusses post-grant review, 321 to 329. Jeremy the Happy River Otter here, dun 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 dun. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Alright. Oh boy. A rather large excitement has just occurred. Jeremy the Happy River here. Moving right along to the 4th chapter of Title 35 of the U.S. Federal Code of Regulations. Moving right along, the 4th chapter, Chapter 35 of definitions is 351, and Chapter 36, international stage, 361 through 368. Now then, Chapter 37 concludes the national stage, 371 through 376, and so ends. Dun 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 dun. Jeremy the River Otter here. A rather large excitement has just occurred.